Well, now it's time to take a little trip to the past, thanks to some very dedicated people over in Muscatine. This fall, the Muscatine Art Center wrapped up a 3-year transformation project, rehabilitating its historic Japanese-style garden. It now looks and feels like it would have when it was first installed back in 1930. Here to chat about this with us is Melanie Alexander, director of the Muscatine Art Center. Melanie, thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much for covering the garden.
Okay, before we get into the process that went into this rehabilitation, talk to us about what this Japanese garden looked like a few years ago versus what visitors will see now.
Yeah, a few years ago, the garden was very overgrown. There were really large pine trees that were dropping pine needles and creating so much shade that the types of plantings that were there originally, they just wouldn't, thrive in those conditions. So it was a big change. Actually, in 2013, we lost a tree in the garden, and it had looked a little something out of whack ever since. So it was time to do something about that.
Oh yeah, and doing something was a really large group effort. This thing involved academic research as well. Talk to me about that.
Sure. Well, the project began with professor. She's an associate professor in the landscape architecture department at Iowa State University. I began talking with her in 2019, and then of course COVID hit, so we had to adjust how we did the project. Originally, it was going to involve more of her students, but in 2020, she came to the garden, did a lot of sort of then and now photos documenting what was there historically, and then kind of how it had changed, and coming up with how we should go about rehabilitating the garden so that it looked more like it did in the 1930s. And then we also had a consultant named Beth Cody who wrote a book called Iowa Gardens of the Past. She did a very deep dive for us about the history of Japanese gardens in the US and in the Midwest, and trying to find out if our garden was the only pre-World War II Japanese style garden in Iowa, and we believe it is.
Wow, wow, and 1930 is a really impressive date. I wanted to ask you what the installation process of all those plants was like this summer, because I knew the drought paid a toll on that, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a tricky year to work. Actually, the project began with archaeology, so we had to get that out of the way first. And then there was all this rock work. The garden is on 3 tiers, so all the rock work had to be removed. There was trees that came out, and then the slopes with all the rock work was rebuilt. So that part went fine, and then summer really kicked in, and it was an especially hot and dry year. So we kept waiting for better conditions so that the living materials would survive. So that pushed our installation of the plant materials to I think it was late August into September, really right up until our deadline, which was the end of September.
But you guys made it, and it looks beautiful. We showed some of those videos while we were talking here today. And the best part is people can see it all for free. Melanie.
That's right.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if you guys at home want to check any of this out, you can head over to the Muscatine Art Center at 1314 Mulberry Avenue over in Muscatine. They're open Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then Thursday evenings a little bit later until 7 p.m. On Saturdays and Sundays, they're open from 1 to 5. And admission, like we said, is free.